Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge and watched the stars drift past the main window. His ship was 3 months into a deep space mission to study new planets beyond human territory. The crew had found 2 worlds that might be good for colonies, and Jake felt proud of their work. His pilot, Lisa Carter, sat at her controls checking the navigation systems while engineer Danny Rogers worked on the engine readings from his station. Dr. Amy Foster was in her lab studying rock samples from the last planet they had visited. The ship's communication system suddenly came alive with a signal stronger than anything they had ever received. Lisa looked up from her controls with surprise on her face. The signal was coming from deep space, far beyond any known human settlements. Danny checked his instruments twice to make sure they were working correctly. The signal was so powerful it seemed to fill all communication channels at once. Jake ordered Lisa to put the signal on the main screen. What appeared made everyone on the bridge go silent. A tall figure with crystal-like skin stood in what looked like a great hall filled with thousands of different alien beings. The crystal being's voice was clear and cold when it spoke. "I am High Chancellor Vex Thara of the Galactic Confederation," the alien said. "For thousands of years, our alliance of 847 species has kept peace in this galaxy. Now that peace faces a threat. The species called humans has grown too quickly and spread too far. Your kind builds weapons instead of art. You fight instead of talking. You change things instead of accepting them. This cannot continue." Jake felt his hands shake as he listened. The alien continued speaking with the same cold voice. "The Confederation has made a decision. All human worlds must surrender within 1 galactic year. Your governments must give up all power to us. Your military forces must be destroyed. Your people will be moved to worlds where we can watch them. If you refuse, every human world will be destroyed. Every human life will end. This is not a request. This is what will happen." The message ended and the screen went dark. The bridge stayed quiet for several minutes. Danny was the first to speak, asking if the message was real. Dr. Amy Foster came running from her lab, having heard the transmission through the ship's speakers. She had been studying alien artifacts for years and had always hoped to make contact with other species. This was not the contact she had dreamed of. Jake ordered Lisa to set course for Earth immediately. The ship's faster-than-light engines pushed them toward home at maximum speed. During the long journey, Amy studied everything she could find about the alien species they had seen in the transmission. She found records of straying ships spotted near the edges of human space over the past few years. Ships that had never made contact but had watched human colonies from a distance. When they reached Earth, Jake sent the message to the government immediately. President Claire Washington called an emergency meeting with all the military leaders. Admiral Steve Parker commanded the Space Fleet while General Linda Hayes led the ground forces. They watched the alien message 3 times before anyone spoke. President Washington asked Admiral Parker how many ships humanity could gather for defense. The Admiral's answer was not good. Earth and all the human colonies together had fewer than 3,000 military ships. They had never needed a large fleet because humans had never fought a war in space before. General Hayes asked Dr. Amy Foster what she knew about these aliens. Amy explained that the Confederation seemed to be very old and very large. She had found evidence that some of their species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, while humans had only been in space for about 200 years. Their technology was clearly much better than anything humans had built, but Amy also noticed something important in the alien message. The High Chancellor had said humans were different from other species because they fought and changed things. Most alien species seemed to have stayed the same for thousands of years. They had grown comfortable and stopped trying new things. Humans, on the other hand, were always building new weapons and ships. They were always looking for better ways to do things. President Washington made the decision that would change everything. Earth would not surrender. Humanity would fight. She sent a message back to the Galactic Confederation saying that humans were not afraid of them. If they wanted human worlds, they would have to take them by force. The message was broadcast to every human colony. Some people were scared, but most were angry. They had worked hard to build their homes on distant worlds. They had families and dreams. No alien government was going to take that away from them. Across 47 human worlds, people began preparing for war. Jake Morrison received orders to return to Earth immediately. His days of peaceful exploration were over. Humanity was about to face its greatest test, and every ship and every person would be needed for the fight ahead. 6 months had passed since the alien ultimatum, and the edge of human space had become a war zone. The largest fleet in galactic history hung in the darkness like a cloud of metal and death. Over 100,000 alien ships had gathered, each one larger and more powerful than the best human vessels. They came from hundreds of different worlds, united only in their goal to destroy or enslave humanity. War. Marshal Kethmer of the Drakmari Empire commanded the invasion fleet from his massive flagship. The Drakmari were warriors who had conquered dozens of star systems before joining the Confederation. Their ships were black and sharp like weapons themselves. Beside them flew the ancient vessels of the Ethereal Collective, being so old they remembered when most other species were still learning to make fire. The alien fleet moved slowly toward human space, stopping at each system to study human defenses. They found mining stations and research posts that humans had abandoned weeks ago. The aliens were surprised to discover that humans had not tried to build bigger defenses or hide behind force fields. Instead, every human ship and station had simply disappeared. Fleet Admiral Tony Brooks watched the alien advance from his command center on Earth. He was a veteran of several small wars between human colonies, but nothing had prepared him for this. His tactical advisor, Captain Helen Price, studied the enemy movements on her screens. She commanded the U.S. Defiance, one of humanity's newest and fastest ships. Helen had graduated first in her class from the military academy and had a mind that could see patterns where others saw only chaos. The first real battle happened at the Kepler 442 system, where humans had built several mining stations around a red star. Commander Rick Stone led 200 human ships against 5,000 alien vessels. Rick was known for taking risks that other commanders would never try. His crews trusted him because he had never lost a battle, even when the odds were against him. The aliens expected an easy victory. Their battle computers had calculated that 200 primitive human ships could not stand against 5,000 advanced alien vessels. They flew in perfect formations that had won battles for thousands of years. Their weapons were more powerful, and their shields were stronger than anything humans had ever built. But Rick Stone did not fight the way the alien computers expected. Instead of meeting them in open space, he led his ships into the asteroid belt around Kepler 442. The aliens followed, confident that they would finish the battle quickly. That was their first mistake. Human ships began exploding around them, but not from alien weapons. Rick had filled the asteroids with nuclear bombs and set them to explode when alien ships came near. The blast destroyed dozens of alien vessels and scattered their perfect formations. In the confusion, human ships attacked from all directions. At once, the aliens tried to reorganize, but Rick had another surprise waiting. His ships suddenly flew straight at the alien vessels as if they meant to crash into them. The aliens thought the humans had gone crazy with fear. Some alien ships moved away to avoid the crashes. Others tried to shoot down the approaching human vessels. At the last second, The human ships fired everything they had and then used their engines to spin away. The alien ships that had moved to avoid crashes found themselves flying into each other. The ones that stayed in place took damage from human weapons at point-blank range. In minutes, the perfect alien formation had become a confused mess of damaged and destroyed ships. Rick's ships kept attacking in ways that made no sense to the alien commanders. Some human vessels rammed alien ships on purpose, destroying both ships but taking out alien vessels that were much more expensive to replace. Other human ships fired their nuclear missiles and then flew away to reload, forcing the aliens to choose between chasing them or maintaining their formation. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, over 1,000 alien ships were destroyed or badly damaged. Rick Stone's fleet was almost completely gone, with only 12 human ships surviving. Rick himself was missing, his ship last seen flying into the engine section of an alien command vessel. The aliens won the battle, but they were shocked by what had happened. Never before had any species fought with such wild tactics. Never before had any enemy been willing to sacrifice themselves to damage alien ships. The alien commanders sent reports back to their homeworlds describing human behavior as completely unpredictable and extremely dangerous. On Earth, Dr. Kevin Walsh and engineer Martha Collins worked day and night on secret projects in underground laboratories. Kevin was a scientist who had been studying alien technology found in crashed ships near human colonies. Martha was an engineer who could build almost anything if given enough time and materials. Together, they were developing weapons and defenses that the aliens would never expect. Martha had discovered something important about alien technology. The aliens had been using the same basic designs for thousands of years. They had improved their weapons and shields, but they had not invented anything truly new in a very long time. Human technology was much newer and less powerful, but it was also more flexible and easier to change. The news of Rick Stone's battle spread to every human world. People were sad about the losses, but they were also proud. Humanity had hurt the aliens badly enough to make them think twice about the war. If 200 human ships could destroy 1,000 alien vessels, maybe humanity had a chance after all. Admiral Tony Brooks began planning the defense of other human systems. He knew that the aliens would be more careful now, but he also knew that they would be afraid. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Confederation was fighting an enemy that refused to give up. 8 months of war had passed, and humanity was losing ground across the galaxy. 23 human colonies had fallen to the alien invasion, their populations either dead or taken prisoner. But the cost to the Galactic Confederation had been terrible. War Marshal Kethmar stared at his casualty reports with growing concern. His forces had lost over 30,000 ships, far more than any battle computer had predicted. The aliens had learned to fear human tactics. Every battle brought new surprises from the human defenders. Ships that pretended to be damaged would suddenly explode when alien vessels came to investigate. Human fighters would hide inside destroyed ships and attack when alien salvage crews tried to recover technology. Some human captains would surrender and then blow up their own ships when aliens came aboard. Admiral Tony Brooks prepared for the defense of New Horizon, humanity's most important industrial colony. The world produced most of the weapons and ships that kept human forces fighting. If New Horizon fell, the war would be over within months. Brooks knew the aliens were bringing their largest fleet yet. Over 50,000 ships commanded by War Marshal Kethmar himself. Captain Helen Price had been promoted to lead Strike Force Delta, an elite group of the best human pilots and ships. Her team included veterans from every major battle of the war. They had trained for months to work together perfectly, using new tactics developed by Dr. Kevin Walsh and his team of scientists. Dr. Walsh had been studying captured alien technology and had made an important discovery. Alien ships were controlled by advanced computers that could think faster than any human brain. But these computers all worked in similar ways because they had been built by the same ancient civilizations. If humans could predict how alien computers would react, they might be able to trick them. The battle for New Horizon began when alien scouts appeared at the edge of the system. Helen Price led Strike Force Delta out to meet them, but her ship seemed to be in complete disorder. Some flew too fast while others moved too slowly. Radio messages between human ships sounded confused and frightened. The alien computers analyzed the human formation and decided that the defenders were poorly trained and likely to break and run. War Marshal Kethmar brought his main fleet into the system, confident that this battle would end human resistance. Once and for all, his 50,000 ships moved in perfect formation toward the planet. The human defenders seemed to panic, flying away from the alien fleet in all directions. Some human ships headed for the asteroid belt around New Horizon, while others flew toward the planet's moons. The alien computers recommended pursuing the scattered human forces and destroying them before they could regroup. Kethmar agreed and ordered his fleet to split into smaller groups to chase down the fleeing humans. This was exactly what Helen Price had hoped he would do. The human retreat was not real. Every move had been planned weeks in advance. As alien ships chased human vessels into the asteroid belt, they triggered hidden nuclear mines that Danny Rogers had placed throughout the area. The explosions destroyed hundreds of alien ships and left the survivors blind and confused. Ships that had fled toward the moon suddenly turned around and attacked. They had been hiding weapons on the moon bases for months, waiting for this moment. Powerful railguns and missile launchers opened fire from the surface while human ships attacked from space. The aliens found themselves caught between two forces and unable to escape, but the biggest surprise was still coming. Dr. Kevin Walsh had developed new computer programs that could take control of alien ship systems. As the battle continued, alien vessels began losing control of their weapons and engines. Some ships stopped firing while others turned and attacked their own allies. The alien battle formation fell apart as their own technology was turned against them. The Battle of New Horizon lasted 12 hours and ended with the complete destruction of Kethmar's invasion fleet. Over 15,000 alien ships were destroyed, while humanity lost fewer than 300 vessels. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species had completely defeated the Confederation's best military forces. The psychological impact was even greater than the military victory. News of the defeat spread throughout Confederation space, causing panic on alien home worlds. Many species began to question whether humanity was really the threat they had been told about. Some alien governments started secret negotiations with human diplomats, looking for ways to end the war. Dr. Amy Foster, now serving as humanity's chief expert on alien cultures, analyzed intercepted alien communications. She discovered that many Confederation species had been forced to join the war against their will. The older and more powerful species like the Zephyrians and Drakmari had threatened to destroy any world that refused to fight humans. Human diplomat Susan Martinez began reaching out to these unwilling allies, offering them protection if they switched sides. She was a skilled negotiator who had helped settle disputes between human colonies before the war. Now she was working to break apart the largest military alliance in galactic history. The victory at New Horizon changed everything. Humanity was no longer just defending itself. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after his excellent service during the early battles, began planning offensive operations deep in alien territory. His target was the Zephyrian home world, where High Chancellor Vex Thura had started this war. Jake assembled a strike force of 500 ships, including many volunteers from the colonies that had been attacked. Captain Lisa Carter commanded a squadron of fast attack vessels, while Commander Danny Rogers led the engineering ships that would support the mission. They were going to take the war to the aliens and show them that humanity could strike anywhere. In the galaxy, President Claire Washington authorized the mission despite concerns from some advisors. She knew that humanity needed to keep the aliens off balance and afraid. If they gave the Confederation time to recover from their losses, the war might drag on for years. As Jake's fleet prepared to leave for alien space, intercepted communications showed that the Confederation was beginning to break apart. Several species had already stopped sending ships to fight humans. Others were demanding explanations for why the war was necessary. The united front against humanity was cracking, and that gave humans their best chance for victory. Admiral Jake Morrison's strike force moved through alien space like ghosts, using captured stealth technology that Danny Rogers had learned to copy from destroyed enemy ships. 500 human vessels traveled in small groups toward their targets deep in Confederation territory. Their mission was more than military. It was about showing the galaxy that nowhere was safe from human retaliation. The fleet had split into task forces, each heading to different alien worlds where human prisoners were being held. Captain Ryan Bell led one group toward the mining world of Corax Prime, where intelligence reports said 3,000 humans were being forced to work in underground factories. Commander Patricia Young took her ships to the research station at Vega 7, where alien scientists were studying captured human technology. Jake himself led the largest force toward Zarian 7, a prison world run by the Insectoid Hive Collective. More than 50,000 humans were trapped there, along with thousands of alien prisoners who had opposed the war. The Hive Collective was known for being completely loyal to the Confederation, never questioning orders from their superiors. Captain Lisa Carter commanded her own ship now, leading a squadron of fast attack vessels that would strike the prison's defenses, while Jake's main force landed troops to free the prisoners. She had trained for this mission for months, studying every detail of the prison's layout and security systems. The first target was easier than expected. Captain Bell's force found Corax Prime defended by only a few outdated alien patrol ships. The human workers had been secretly building weapons and communication devices, preparing for rescue. When Bell's ships arrived, the prisoners took control of the mining equipment and used it as weapons against their guards. Commander Young's mission at Vega 7 was more difficult. The research station was heavily defended, and the alien scientists had been experimenting on human prisoners to learn how human brains worked. Young's ships had to fight through 3 defensive lines before reaching the station. What they found there made even veteran soldiers angry enough to take risks they normally would not take. But the real discovery came when Dr. Amy Foster, now traveling with Jake's fleet as an expert on alien cultures, began talking to freed alien prisoners. These were not enemy soldiers, but ordinary citizens who had spoken out against the war. They told her something that changed everything about how humans understood the conflict. Most of the species in the Confederation were not willing allies but virtual slaves to the older and more powerful races. The Zephyrians, Drakmari, and a few other ancient species controlled the government and military, while smaller species were forced to provide ships and soldiers. The war against humanity was not just about stopping human expansion, it was about keeping the younger species busy and afraid so they would not rebel. Amy learned that many alien worlds had populations that sympathized with humanity. They saw humans as fellow victims of the elder species' tyranny. Some had even been secretly hoping that humans would win the war and free them from Confederation control. This information changed Jake's mission completely. Instead of just freeing prisoners, his forces began broadcasting the truth throughout alien space. Danny Rogers and his team had developed quantum communication networks that could bypass official Confederation channels. They sent messages to every alien world, telling them about the real reasons for the war and offering alliance with humanity. The response was immediate and surprising. On dozens of worlds, alien populations began protesting against their governments. Some refused to send more ships to fight humans. Others demanded explanations for why the war was necessary. The unity that had held the Confederation together for thousands of years began to crack, but the elder species responded with force. War Marshal Kethmore, desperate to restore order, began threatening to destroy any world that stopped supporting the war. When the agricultural world of Centauri Beta declared neutrality, Confederation forces attacked it as an example to others. The attack on Eden Valley, a human agricultural world with 12 million civilians, came 3 days later. Kethmore claimed it was retaliation for human raids on alien territory, but everyone knew it was really meant to terrorize humanity into surrender. Captain Helen Price led a desperate defense, racing across space with every ship she could gather. She arrived too late. The alien fleet had already bombarded the planet's cities with weapons designed to cause maximum civilian casualties. 12 million innocent people had died in a matter of hours. The images of the destroyed world spread throughout human space and beyond, showing the galaxy what the Confederation was willing to do to win. The massacre at Eden Valley changed the nature of the war. Many alien species that had remained neutral now actively supported humanity. The idea that the Confederation would kill millions of civilians to make a point horrified species that had joined the alliance, believing it stood for peace and order. Dr. Kevin Walsh received emergency authorization to complete Project Phoenix, a weapon system he had been developing in secret. Unlike the nuclear weapons and computer viruses humans had used before, Phoenix was designed to attack the basic infrastructure that kept alien civilization running. It could shut down the artificial intelligence systems that controlled everything, from spaceship navigation to life support on alien worlds. The weapon was incredibly dangerous, because alien society had become completely dependent on automated systems over thousands of years. Many species no longer knew how to operate their own technology without computer assistance. Using Phoenix would effectively cripple alien civilization, but it might also cause millions of deaths on worlds where life support failed. President Claire Washington and Admiral Tony Brooks argued against using such a weapon, believing that victory through genocide would make humanity no better than their enemies. But with Earth itself now under direct attack by Kethmore's remaining forces, other leaders argued that humanity could not afford to be merciful. The decision was taken out of their hands when Confederation forces launched Operation Final Strike, a direct assault on Earth using planet-killing weapons. With just hours before the weapons reached their target, Captain Helen Price made the choice to deploy Phoenix without waiting for authorization. She targeted only military systems, hoping to stop the attack without causing civilian casualties. Results were immediate and terrible. Across the galaxy, Confederation military ships suddenly went dark as their computer systems crashed. Weapons stopped working, engines shut down, and communications failed. In 6 hours, the most powerful military force in galactic history became a collection of helpless metal floating in space. The galaxy went silent in the hours after Project Phoenix activated. Across thousands of star systems, the advanced computer networks that had run alien civilization for millennia simply stopped working. Confederation warships drifted helplessly in space while their crews tried to understand what had happened. On many worlds, power grids failed and communication systems went dark. Captain Helen Price stood on the bridge of the UES, defiance and watched enemy ships go dead around Earth. The planet-killing weapons that had been heading toward her home world were now floating metal shells with no guidance systems. She had saved Earth, but she also knew that her decision to use Phoenix without authorization would have consequences across the galaxy. The weapon had worked better than dear Kevin Walsh had expected. Not only had it destroyed military computer systems, but it had also affected civilian infrastructure on many alien worlds. Species that had relied on artificial intelligence for everything from food distribution to medical care were now struggling to survive without their automated systems. News of the crisis reached human commanders throughout the galaxy. Admiral Jake Morrison, still deep in Confederation territory, began receiving distress calls from alien worlds where life support systems had failed. Captain Lisa Carter found herself rescuing the same alien crews who had been trying to kill her just hours before. President Claire Washington made a decision that shocked both humans and aliens. Instead of celebrating victory, she ordered immediate humanitarian aid for affected alien worlds. Dr. Amy Foster worked with alien refugees to understand which systems were most critical for survival, while engineer Martha Collins designed simple replacement technologies that could work without advanced computers. The human response amazed the galaxy. On world after world, human ships arrived carrying food, medical supplies, and technical experts who worked to restore basic services. Danny Rogers led teams of engineers who taught alien technicians how to repair their own equipment using human methods that did not require artificial intelligence. Many alien leaders could not understand why humans were helping their former enemies. Some suspected it was a trick or a way to make aliens dependent on human technology. But as days passed and human aid continued without any demands for surrender or payment, even the most suspicious aliens began to realize that human motives were genuine. Admiral Tony Brooks established the Galactic Relief Command to coordinate humanitarian efforts. Former enemies worked side by side with human crews to rebuild damaged infrastructure. Captain Ryan Bell found himself teaching alien engineers how to run power plants manually, while Commander Patricia Young organized food shipments to worlds where automated farms had stopped working. The political situation changed rapidly as alien populations learned the truth about their governments. Many species discovered that their leaders had lied to them about the reasons for the war. The elder species had claimed that humans were violent conquerors who would enslave the galaxy, but the reality was completely different. War Marshal Kethmer made one final desperate attempt to salvage Confederation victory. His flagship, the Drakmari battleship Vengeance, had been manually converted to work without computer assistance. With a crew of fanatics who blamed humans for the collapse of their civilization, Kethmer planned a suicide attack on Earth using nuclear weapons. The attack might have succeeded if not for Commander Rick Stone. The hero of the early battles had not died at Kepler 442 as everyone believed. His damaged ship had been captured by aliens, and he had spent months as a prisoner learning about Confederation technology. When the prison ships went dark after Phoenix, Rick and other human prisoners had taken control. Rick's captured alien vessel intercepted Kethmer's ship just outside Earth's defensive perimeter. The two ships fought a desperate battle, with Rick using his knowledge of alien technology to match Kethmer's superior firepower. In the end, both ships were destroyed. But Earth was saved once again. The death of War Marshal Kethmer marked the end of organized Confederation resistance. The elder species who had started the war were either dead or had fled to distant star systems. Younger species that had been forced to fight were now free to make their own decisions about the future. High Chancellor Vexthara of the Zephyrians, the alien leader who had delivered the original ultimatum to humanity, surprised everyone by requesting a meeting with President Washington. The crystal-skinned alien arrived on Earth aboard a simple transport ship, accompanied only by a small diplomatic staff. The meeting took place in the same room where human leaders had first decided to reject the alien ultimatum. Vexthara looked much different than she had in the threatening message broadcast months ago. Her crystal skin was cracked and dull, showing the stress of watching her civilization collapse. She spoke quietly, admitting that the Confederation had been wrong about humanity. The elder species had feared human expansion not because humans were violent, but because they represented change in a galaxy that had remained the same for thousands of years. The rapid growth of human civilization had threatened the comfortable order that allowed the elder species to rule. Vexthara offered formal surrender of all remaining Confederation forces, but President Washington surprised her by refusing to accept it. Instead, she proposed something that had never happened in galactic history. Rather than demanding tribute or territory from defeated enemies, humanity would help them rebuild their civilization on better principles. Dr. Kevin Walsh and his team worked around the clock to develop replacement technologies that could restore alien infrastructure without creating the same dependence on artificial intelligence that had made Phoenix so devastating. The new systems were simpler but more reliable, and they could be maintained by the aliens themselves without outside help. Captain Helen Price, now promoted to Admiral, was chosen to lead the new Galactic Reconstruction Force. Her mission was to help former enemy worlds rebuild while also establishing defensive alliances based on mutual respect rather than fear. The woman who had once fought to destroy alien fleets was now working to help them recover. The transformation was remarkable. Within weeks of the end of major fighting, thousands of alien worlds had joined the human-led reconstruction effort. Species that had been enemies were now working together to build something better than what had existed before. 3 months after the end of the war, representatives from over 1,000 alien species gathered on Earth for the most important meeting in galactic history. The planet that the Confederation had tried to destroy was now hosting the conference. That would decide the future of civilization. President Claire Washington looked out at the diverse crowd of beings and felt amazed at how much had changed. The old Galactic Confederation was gone forever. In its place, species across the galaxy were creating something new called the Galactic Assembly. Unlike the old system where elder species ruled over younger ones, the assembly would be based on equality and cooperation. Every species would have a voice, regardless of how long they had been traveling between stars. Admiral Jake Morrison had returned from his missions in alien territory with reports that amazed everyone. The species that had seemed so united in their hatred of humanity were actually eager to work with their former enemies. On world after world, aliens were studying human technology and culture, trying to understand how such a young species had achieved so much. Dr. Amy Foster had established cultural exchange programs that brought alien students to human universities while sending human scholars to learn about alien history and science. The programs were so popular that there were waiting lists on both sides. Many aliens were particularly interested in human art and music, which they found much more creative than their own ancient traditions. Engineer Danny Rogers was busy teaching alien technicians how to build and maintain the new simplified computer systems that were replacing the old artificial intelligence networks. His workshops were held on dozens of worlds, and he had trained thousands of alien engineers. The new systems were not as advanced as what the aliens had used before, but they were much more reliable and easier to understand. Captain Lisa Carter led exploration missions that included both human and alien crew members. Her ship, the Unity, had become a symbol of the new cooperation between species. She was mapping unknown regions of the galaxy while also helping newly contacted species decide whether they wanted to join the Galactic Assembly, the formal ceremony. To establish the assembly took place in the same hall where the United Nations had once met. High Chancellor Vex Thara stood beside President Washington as they signed the Treaty of New Terra, the document that would govern relationships between species for generations to come. The crystal-skinned alien who had once threatened humanity with destruction was now one of its strongest supporters, Senator Marcus Cole, a human diplomat who had worked throughout the war to build alliances with moderate alien species, was elected as the first Chancellor of the Galactic Assembly. His election was supported by species from across the galaxy who had seen how humans treated former enemies with respect and fairness. The treaty included several principles that had been proposed by humanity. No species would be allowed to conquer or enslave another. All species had the right to govern themselves according to their own cultures and beliefs. Technology and knowledge would be shared freely to help all species advance together. Most importantly, conflicts would be resolved through negotiation rather than war. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the scientist who had created Project Phoenix, was now working on his most ambitious project yet. He was developing a new type of faster-than-light communication system that would connect every world in the assembly. The network would make it impossible for misunderstandings and lies to start another galactic war. The communication network was based on quantum technology that Walsh had learned from studying both human and alien science. It would allow instant communication across any distance, meaning that all species could talk to each other in real time. No government would be able to control the flow of information or hide the truth from its people. Captain Helen Price, now Admiral Price, was chosen to command the new Galactic Defense Force. Unlike the old Confederation military that had been used to conquer and control, the Defense Force would only protect member species from outside threats. Its ships carried crews from dozens of different species working together as equals. The transformation was so complete that many aliens found it hard to believe the war had really happened. On worlds that had been devastated by the conflict, humans and aliens worked side by side to rebuild cities and restore damaged ecosystems. Children who had lost parents in the fighting were adopted by families from other species. War Marshal Kethmar, who had survived the destruction of his ship near Earth, became an unexpected symbol of redemption. The former Drakmari commander now worked with human military advisors to develop new defense strategies that focused on protecting civilian populations rather than conquering territory. His knowledge of Confederation military tactics helped the Assembly prepare for any future threats. The Assembly's first major test came when long-range scouts discovered a hostile alien empire beyond the edge of known space. The Devourers, as they called themselves, had been consuming entire star systems for thousands of years. They showed no interest in negotiation and seemed to view all other life as food, but this time the galaxy was ready. Instead of fighting among themselves, over 1,000 species worked together to prepare defenses. Human tactical innovations were combined with alien technology and ancient wisdom from the elder species. The unity that had failed when turned against humanity now succeeded in protecting all. Galactic civilization. Admiral Price stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the diverse fleet assemble to meet the Devourer threat. Ships from hundreds of worlds flew in perfect formation, their crews trained in the combined tactics that humans had developed during the war. She remembered the desperate battles when humanity had stood alone against impossible odds. The final scene of the story took place in a park on Earth where children from dozens of different species played together while their parents discussed plans for new colonies and exploration missions. President Washington, now in her final term of office, walked among them and marveled at how quickly former enemies had become friends. Young human girl was teaching an alien child how to throw a ball while nearby, their parents discussed a joint mission to explore a distant galaxy. It was a scene that would have been impossible during the war, but now it seemed as natural as breathing. Dr. Kevin Walsh finished his quantum communication network and activated it for the first time. Instantly, every world in the assembly was connected to every other world. Messages of friendship and cooperation flowed across the galaxy as species that had never met before began talking to each other. The network ensured that no species would ever again be isolated or misunderstood. As the sun set over Earth, the planet that had refused to surrender was now the beating heart of a galactic civilization, based on cooperation rather than conquest. Humanity had not just survived the galaxy's attempt to destroy them. They had transformed their enemies into the closest of allies and created something greater than anyone had ever imagined possible.